Folks, we're going to get started. Welcome. Let's get to our intro screen here. I welcome everybody. Thank you for coming early and joining us for a day learning about Hyper-V, Microsoft products, and Virtual Machine Manager. I'm Simon Perryman. I'm a technical evangelist with Microsoft. I'm based out of Redmond corporate headquarters. And so just a little background. I spent about 4 years as an engineering working on Hyper-V and clustering features. So I actually built a lot of the technologies that we're showing today. So if you want to go in depth, figure out how things work kind of under the covers, we can spend time whiteboarding. But right now, I am a technical evangelist. And so if you know Dan, if you know Bob over there, we kind of do the same thing. These are our regional guys. I'm the worldwide guy. And these guys have been kind enough to help me out here and help you guys out as well. So do you mind introducing yourself, Dan?
Dan Stoltz, been with Microsoft for about 5 years. I'm an evangelist for the Northeast District, which is all of New England, upstate New York. And I'm kind of the go-to guy that people like Chris Harney and the rest of your leadership turn to for Microsoft support. So I'm here for you guys, for them.
And I'm Dan's counterpart to the south out of New York. So essentially just drove up to help out.
Don't hold that against him, guys.
Hey, the American League won. It's okay.
Thanks, guys. So throughout the day, if you guys have any questions, any help, just raise your hand. Bob will be able to come over and answer you. I'm going to kind of keep things going up front. And over the course today, really, we want to give you an introduction to our core virtualization platform, talk about high availability, resiliency, and then spend a little time looking at our management system, specifically System Center. Now, first question, who here is a VMware administrator or primarily uses VMware? So, okay, most of you. How about Microsoft? Familiar with the Microsoft stuff? Okay, so a few of you. Good. So this is ideal because what we're going to really do here is kind of translate things. So speak about VMware language, how that kind of translates to Microsoft. I'm a VCP as well, and I know Dan is, you're going through the process. Have you got VCP yet?
I've gone through the class. I haven't taken my test yet.
Okay, almost there. Bob, how's your VCP status?
Good. I finished that.
Congratulations. So hopefully we can kind of speak both languages, and this is kind of our goal here, you know. We're going to say, hey, this is a live migration. That would be equivalent to a vMotion. So throughout the day, we're going to try to keep a technical level setting just to kind of help you understand those concepts a little better. Now, with that in mind, we do have an agenda here. And what we want to do is spend most of our time actually doing the labs. So this is generally a 2-day course. We don't even have a full day, but we'll stay a little longer. And so we have the choice to be, you know, kind of slide heavy, kind of lab heavy. And I'm going to recommend we spend more time actually doing the labs, give you that hands-on experience as well. Sound good? Okay, cool. Now, first question though, we want to make sure that we cover topics that you want to know as well. So we do have a kind of a planned agenda, but regardless of that agenda, is there anything specific that you guys want to make sure that we cover? And we will try to fit that in, and we'll try to even build a lab dynamically around it. So the lab platform we have is pretty flexible. It includes all the System Center products, core virtualization, things like that. So we should be able to kind of show anything you guys want. So with that in mind, yell it out. Is there anything that you want to make sure we cover today?
Making your virtual switches recover.
Okay. Okay. Yes, we could do some of that. Anything else?
We start with installation.
Installation. Well, we're one step ahead of you with that. We do have most of this pre-configured to make it easy. Now, you're talking installation of System Center or installation of the core product?
Let's start at the very beginning. I mean, so you install Windows on the hardware,
Mm-hmm.
and then where do you go from there? I understand there's roles and features, and I've seen Hyper-V in there. What do I do? Do I just
Sounds good.
checkbox and hit next?
Sounds good. We could go through that.
You guys do anything with converting VMware machines into moving into Hyper-V?
We could do that. I have a few offline VMware virtual machines. We can do a conversion. What we're going to do, we could do both a V to V conversion, which is a VM to a VM. Also, we have a few offline VMDK files that we're going to import from a VMware library, put it into our virtual machine manager library, then using those VMDK files, actually go and build up a template of a VM and a service on top of that.
Maybe some best practices as far as where to store stuff, because I've installed Hyper-V and I can't say that I'm really crazy about the default folder structure.
Okay, great question. Okay.
So, you know, that's just around storage, but there are other best practices. You know, IDE drive over SCSI drives, things of that nature as we delve into it.
Okay, great. Yep, we could cover that.
So are you actually building it as a cluster today in this lab?
Yes, we will be building a failover cluster. Yep. And we'll be deploying a VM on it, and we can deploy other things on it as well if you want.
With shared storage?
Yes, with shared storage. We're going to use cluster shared volumes. Cluster shared volumes is our distributed access file system for Hyper-V. It would be equivalent to VMFS. Any other topics? Or if you think of them, yell them out. What we really want to do with the day is make this, your training. Make sure that you kind of learn what you want to know as part of this. So with that, we will get started. And we're actually kind of going to cover one of the first questions, installation, as part of this first module. So I apologize, I'm at the back of the room. You guys do have swivel chairs at least, so hopefully that'll make it a little easier. Now, is anybody not logged into the lab? Is anybody having any trouble connecting to the lab?
Yeah, it's not accepting the credentials.
Okay, so you probably have the double. Yep. So we will help you with that. He needs the student one, the B20. So here, if you look on the screen, the first prompt one, B20-student 1009. I'm going to let Dan wrap that up, and we will move over here.
So just a word of warning, I'm not familiar with Hyper-V or VMware. I'm here for information, actually. I didn't realise it's going to be so hands-on.
No problem. We have detailed step-by-step, so as long as you kind of grab these, you'll be able to follow along.
So I would be interested, I do a lot of work with Microsoft.
Okay.
It's a managed technology alliance with them.
Okay.
And I'd certainly be interested in the crypto and the security aspects of BitLocker and...
Okay. Not my specialty, but I think Bob covers that. So let's chat about that during the lunch break.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry?
So I'm talking to myself where I find the lab here.
Here you go.
Okay.
He's going to need help in 1 second connecting to the lab as well. Okay, so with that, let's get started and kind of, go through this introduction, go through kind of some of the installation basics on paper. Then we're going to go over to the first lab pretty soon. Now, over the course of the day, these are kind of the big topics we're going to be covering. Right now, this first 30 minutes is to give you the intro, give you a chance to connect to the lab. So this time, connecting to the labs was built in. We're then going to cover the basics of Hyper-V virtualization. So we'll look at the installation. We will look at best practices. We'll look at where you would go place your various files. We're then going to take a look at high availability. We're actually going to build a cluster, configure Hyper-V replication. Then we're going to move on to System Center Virtual Machine Manager, where we'll do some of this hybrid hypervisor management. So manage simultaneously VMware as well as Hyper-V. Then we're going to spend some time looking at monitoring, and we can actually take a look at the VMware management pack, so you can actually see like your distributed vSwitches, everything like that from VMware. We'll look at automation using System Center Orchestrator. So this is basically our automation engine. And we can actually have our VMware integration pack installed, so we can even do some basic VMware automation. And then we have some time left over at the end. So we can talk about hybrid cloud, we can talk about integration with Azure, or we can focus on another topic that you guys prefer. Ultimately what I want to get out of the day is make sure you guys are happy you guys came here and learned what you wanted to know. Now, having said that, here is the complete list of topics that are available. So if there's something else here that piques your interest, we can go ahead and do something with this. So I'll just leave that on the screen for 1 minute. So think about what additional stuff you may be interested in. Alrighty. So, what are the goals of this course? Essentially, we want to give our VMware administrators some more familiarity with the Microsoft products and Hyper-V. Now, where we believe we are with virtualization is we have a pretty equivalent feature set with VMware right now. You know, we could do 99% of what VMware does, and vice versa. In some cases, we have features VMware doesn't have. They have features we don't have. So I'm not here to tell you that we are a better virtualization product, okay? I'm not here to try to convince you. What I want to do is just show you our technology and also show you our integration, how you can use our products to go manage that VMware environment. We hear a lot of customers trying to start to switch, and if you do decide to move over to the Microsoft platform, you don't have to throw out your existing VMware investment. So that's why we're really trying to show this kind of hybrid management and how you can manage VMware using the Microsoft products. So maybe as you start your next hardware refresh, you want to start thinking more and more about putting Microsoft in, but you can still manage your existing infrastructure. So again, we're not looking to replace. We're giving you the opportunity to manage them side by side. So let's quickly review some terminology and see kind of how these two products compare. So for our core hypervisor, we use Hyper-V. This would be equivalent to the vSphere hypervisor. For our management, our centralized management portal, we have Virtual Machine Manager. This is equivalent to vCenter. For self-service, which is basically allowing an end user to go to a website, say, I want to deploy this VM, we have App Controller. This would be equivalent to vCloud Director. For monitoring, we have Operations Manager. This allows us to do real-time monitoring of servers, applications, VMs, whatever you need. And this would be equivalent to vCenter Ops Management Suite. For protection, we have Data Protection Manager. This allows you to back up your VMs, your hosts, do item-level recovery, similar to vSphere Data Protection. For our ITIL service management, we have Service Manager, similar to vCloud Automation Center. Now, nice thing about Service Manager, it kind of functions as almost two products. First, it does the centralized IT help desk. So this is your ticketing system, inventory, things like that. Secondly, it's a centralized integration point across all of our other System Center products. So for example, you can get an alert from Operations Manager. It will automatically create a ticket for you in Service Manager, and it will automatically try to fix the problem for you using our automation engine known as System Center Orchestrator. And this would be equivalent to vCenter Orchestrator. Yeah?
Do you have a vShield equivalent?
vShield equivalent. We have a couple products that we would say is equivalent. One of them is the System Center Endpoint Protection. So basically, that comes as part of the System Center suite as well.
We're about to implement that.
Kind of covers everything, yeah. So that would be the best equivalent. From my understanding, vShield kind of does some... So with endpoint protection, basically that's what we use to go scan. That's our malware, best practice, things like that. To go and apply things such as baselines, we actually use Configuration Manager as well. So we do have the equivalent functionality here with endpoint protection plus Configuration Manager.
You're probably, then it would probably be safe to say that managing the Windows firewall through Configuration Manager would be
That would probably be the easiest, most centralized way. So Configuration Manager, we left out of scope here along with Endpoint Protection. The reason why is primarily it's used to manage client machines. So Configuration Manager gives us the ability to do patches, best practices, apply software, mobile distribution, things like that. It, of course, manages servers the same. Really, we decided to focus more on these kind of other data center virtualization features as opposed to kind of the patching and best practices here. So we do not have Configuration Manager available as part of this lab. But good feedback. It is something that I am trying to get built into our next version. So I definitely think there's interest in that. Now, one thing that I also want to note here is with System Center 2012, this is what we get as part of System Center 2012. You get all of those products that we covered. Our VM management all the way through the stack. We now sell this as a single product. So you get a System Center 2012 license, you get everything. And so a lot of people say, why is VMware, doing this piece by piece? Why are we doing everything together? Well, we just want to increase adoption. We feel that a lot of people are kind of interested in automation, kind of interested in self-service, but aren't necessarily willing to go and buy a full license for that. So what we wanted to do, we give you everything. You get the System Center 2012 license, you get all of this. So even if today you just want to use Virtual Machine Manager, just want to use Operations Manager, great. You still have that ability to kind of play around with these additional components, gradually start to go integrate them into your environment. Any questions about this type of mapping with products? All right. So introduction to Hyper-V. So Hyper-V has been around for a little over 5 years now. First introduced in Windows Server 2008. Now we added a product called Hyper-V Server a little later in the year, and we're going to spend some time on that because this is a free host operating system that we provide. So again, we wanted to encourage people to experiment with it, try it out, and so you can go download this today, Hyper-V Server, completely free host operating system. In 2009, we added our next version, 2008 R2, and this included some of these critical features such as live migration, which would be a vMotion, cluster shared volumes, which would be equivalent to VMFS, storage, performance, and scalability improvements as well, and also processor compatibility. So with virtualization, we have the same type of limitations that VMware does as far as whether you run everything on Intel or whether you run everything on AMD. We still require everything to be in the same processor family. That's because Intel and AMD, they use different memory structures, and so it's not possible to do a vMotion or a live migration from Intel to AMD back. We have that same restriction here. So you can do all Intel or all AMD for your infrastructure. Now that's just to be able to do a live migration or a vMotion. We added some features called dynamic memory in our latest update. Dynamic memory allows us to do shared memory. And what this allows us to do is have better density and actually have more memory of VMs running on a host than the host can sustain. So it's similar to page sharing. Now, if you want to go and see how you can go and use Hyper-V with any third-party products, so let's say you're currently working with different storage vendors, different networking vendors, you could go to the Windows Server catalog and it will show kind of all the integration that we have with our third parties. So let's go over our deployment options before we get into the lab here. Now Windows Server 2012, this is what we're going to be focusing on, and this is what you're using in your lab. So you have the RTM edition of Windows Server 2012. Now we recently announced that we're coming out with Windows Server 2012 R2. That was just announced a couple weeks ago, and there's a lot of new features, new capabilities in this release. We are just focusing today with the lab and the content on 2012 RTM. If we have fewer components, no graphical user interface, a stripped-down operating system, that means we have less patches. Less patches means less reboots, higher uptime. So by default, we want to encourage people to use the server core just because they're going to get better resiliency throughout their infrastructure. We'll connect to it remotely with a full graphical user interface and still get that. Now, as far as what you can connect remotely using Hyper-V Manager. You could connect using Failover Cluster Manager, which is our cluster program. You could connect remotely using Virtual Machine Manager. You could connect remotely using PowerShell. You could connect remotely using Remote Server Administration. And this is also a free product you can download and install on a Windows client laptop. And basically what this does, it's the full set of server management features, but running on your laptop. You connect remotely. So again, you get that full graphical user interface, yet the actual hosts are running on a very stripped down, very secure host operating system. So once again, when you go through the installation options, we definitely encourage using the core. So when you actually go to deployment, this is what the screen you get for installing the roles. And we've gone ahead and pre-installed this for you. Basically, this is our add roles and resources wizard. In this case, we've gone and we've installed the Hyper-V role. Now Hyper-V, this essentially turns on our hypervisor. Now we use hardware-assisted virtualization. So this means that the actual physical servers need to support virtualization. So this means you can use Intel with the AMD V, You can use AMD with AMD-V, Intel VT. We recommend using data execution protection, which is a setting you can turn on in the BIOS. So bottom line, you do need to have hardware that will support virtualization. You can't just do it on your laptop, unless your laptop supports virtualization. Now, so these are kind of similar restrictions. Now, there is one important restriction worth mentioning now. This is a limitation that you're going to see in your lab. Hyper-V does not support nested virtualization. Nested virtualization means you run VMs from within VMs. I will admit it's a kind of annoying when you're building these labs. And so what you've actually got here is everything you're using is running inside virtual machines. So the way the lab is configured is you connect to this lab launcher interface. And this is the screen where you see that little prompt. You know, you can kind of look around. Most of you have the lab launcher screen up. Basically, this is a management virtual machine. You hop into that management virtual machine, and from there, you then connect to your other VMs. Now, the advantage of using this management virtual machine is we have the ability to go and change those other virtual machines that are part of the group. So this lab launcher virtual machine, you see you have those different checkpoints. Those are like snapshots. When you click apply, it will actually turn off the other VMs in the set, change the state of them, bring those VMs back on, and let you know when they're ready. So essentially, this lab launcher VM is the manager for the other 4 machines in your set. Now, since everything is running in a virtualized environment, and we can't do nested virtualization, how can we show Hyper-V? Well, the specific limitation is you cannot start the VM. So what we can do, though, is we can create VMs. We can copy them. We can clone them. We can import them, export them, change the properties, set up clusters. We can do everything except turn that VM on. So even though it's a limitation, from the lab perspective, we could do 95% of everything we need to show here. We just have the problem, if you hit turn it on, you're going to get an error 1620 that says, hey, we can't start this virtual machine. So fully expected, we have that documented as well. So just want to set that expectation here. Now, next thing is the Hyper-V Server 2012. This is this stripped down free version that you can get. This is the one that the gentleman just mentioned here. So if you go to downloads.microsoft.com, search for Hyper-V Server, you could go download the completely full edition. So now the advantage of this, why would you want to go and use this? Well, first of all, it is free. Okay, you don't need any license. It's not an eval edition. This will not expire. It is free. It comes with all of the Hyper-V features, all of the cluster features, supports everything, including Hyper-V replica, live migration, 8,000 VMs in a 64-node cluster. So there are no technical differences in this. It does not have a graphical user interface, so it's that stripped-down version again, which we want to encourage people to use. Yep.
Corefig?
It's actually similar to Corefig. So,
well, I'm just saying, I use Corefig on it.
Yeah, so what you actually get when you go and run this, rather than just a traditional command line prompt, we've actually built a custom command line prompt called scconfig. And what it will do is it will walk you through the basic setup. It will say, do you want to join a domain? What's the username? What's the password? Configure networking, install patches, automatic updates. So even though it's based on command line, we kind of give you some guidance to get you up and running. Now this system, again, is fully remotable as well. So even though there's no graphical user interface, you could connect through PowerShell, Hyper-V Manager, Failover Cluster Manager, Virtual Machine Manager, and remote server administration tools to still get that full interface, even though it's stripped down. So the next question I get asked is, well, this is free. Why would Microsoft do this? We want to encourage adoption. We want to get people to try it out. And honestly, we want people to be using this stripped-down version as well. Again, fewer reboots, better uptime. So then people say, well, can I run Linux virtual machines on this and have a free solution throughout the stack? Yep, you can. So you get Hyper-V as your free-based host operating system. If you want to run Linux inside the guest, we support all these different guest operating systems. So where's the catch? Okay, we're not giving this away completely for free. This does not include the other server roles that you're going to want to have in your data center. It does not include Active Directory, file services, DNS, DHCP. So you're still probably going to need to have that already in your environment, and then you would basically add these as your hosts. So when you build a cluster, there's a dependency on Active Directory. So if you just download this, you could do standalone Hyper-V, build everything on a single host. You're not going to be able to cluster it. Now, if you already have Active Directory in your environment, no problem. You'll join it to your regular Active Directory domain, full support with clustering and all those other features that do have a dependency on AD. Any questions on the Hyper-V server? All right, downloads.microsoft.com. So essentially, the way we kind of see this is you really have 3 deployment options. You have the full graphical user interface, you have full version of Windows Server without the GUI, and then Hyper-V Server 2012. Okay, so deploying Hyper-V, what are the different options? Now, the reason why we're doing this as an actual presentation is we've already deployed Hyper-V for you. We wanted to get you up and running a lot sooner. So here's your deployment options. You could deploy from a DVD or an ISO. ISO being basically a collection of files that's installable. You could deploy from a USB disk. So you could go plug this into a server, boot from your USB, install from there. You could do network deployment, so Pixie boots, things like that. If you have that set up in your environment, you could go deploy your hosts from that. So pretty flexible in those deployment options. As we look at how we would deploy over the network, so this is, let's say we're doing a network deployment. Here's the options you have. You have Windows Deployment Services, WDS. This is a Windows Server role that allows you to simplify deployment. It allows users to configure options. So if I'm on a remote computer, I want to go connect and install Hyper-V. If I have WDS set up, it will give me a choice of, do I want to go and install the full version, the core version, Hyper-V server. So you can actually build a set of customized scripts and customized questions for your attendees. The Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. This is a free download known as a Solution Accelerator. Using the MDT, it's even more customizable. But the biggest thing I see people use the MDT for is for large-scale deployments. So the MDT has great PowerShell support, PowerShell being our scripting engine. So if you're going to go deploy 100 hosts, something like that, recommend using the MDT. Gives you a lot more flexibility, highly automated. So for example, you'll write your PowerShell script once. You then have a batch file listing all of your server names, and you go and point to the different server names. So you can kind of fully automate this, insert those into your script. And then System Center Configuration Manager. Also part of the System Center family, but this is the one that we're not going to be covering today. Configuration Manager, great for large-scale deployments, highly automated, lots of visibility, and supports thousands of computers at once. So taking a quick look, what does Microsoft have here? What does VMware have? You can see we're essentially equivalent here. In fact, got to give VMware an advantage on this one. They support stateless deployments where we don't. So I hope, over the course of the day, we're going to show these comparisons. We want to be very honest. We want to be fair and, tell the facts. So these are the facts here as far as how these are configured. Now, just to let you know what versions we're comparing when you see this comparison, we are looking at Windows Server 2012 RTM, so the product that's in the market today, and we're comparing that to VMware 5.1, the product that's in the market today. So we're not really looking at what's coming out next. We're looking at what we both have today, what's shipping. Now, we spent a lot of time trying to improve our scale in this release. So you can see kind of the differences from our past one to our current one. And for our host, we are 4 times or more supporting. So this, again, is our host. This is the physical server that we're running our VMs on. You can have a 4 terabyte of memory on the host. And you could have over, over 2,000 virtual CPUs per host. So pretty high scale, pretty dense hosts. Now, as we look at the virtual machine itself, you can have a 64 virtual CPU VM with 1 terabyte of memory. Again, this is just the VM. This isn't the host. You can have a VM with 1 terabyte of memory. We support over 1,000 VMs on a host. As we look at clustering, we support 64 node clusters, 8,000 virtual machines. So pretty high scale here. Now, also consider, as we look at these numbers, all of these numbers are going to be identical on that free version as well. So the Hyper-V Server 2012 that you can download, same support, same scale. Now, next thing that we look at, this is an area that we spend a lot of time on, trying to improve our memory management. Now, NUMA is non-uniform memory access. It's essentially a way that we can go and optimize our memory access by placing our actual memory chips in logical blocks and trying to keep the same VM working within the same logical block. From the hardware level, it sounds odd, but essentially by actually working with our memory chips that are physically close to each other, we get better performance instead of going that really long distance of those extra millimeters across chips. So essentially it's looking at the physical topology of the storage, of the memory, and logically grouping it so that we're working with memory on a VM that's all close together. And this will be milliseconds of difference each command, but if you're doing thousands of commands a second, over time this can add up. So this is essentially a way that we've gone to really try to optimize our memory both on our host and within a virtual machine. So taking a look at the numbers that we have here, comparing to VMware, we do have some improvements in our scale. Support larger clusters, support more VMs, support more memory for our VMs. But otherwise, we're relatively similar. So as of right now, Hyper-V has slightly higher scale than VMware. And again, really want to try to emphasize, not an opinion, I'm here just presenting the facts. So let's talk about guest operating system support. So this is the actual components that are running within a virtual machine. These are the servers that we support here. We got a full list in that link. So you can see we support kind of the primary Microsoft servers and then the most common Linux distributions as well. For client operating systems, support the major client ones from Microsoft, as well as a lot of the Linux distributions. So one thing that's missing here, Mac OS. We do not support Mac OS. I do not believe VMware does either. Correct me if I'm wrong with that.
Not officially.
Not